Hi, Robert. Welcome to Funnel Vision Podcast. Thrilled to have you on today to share your tips, tricks, and expertise with our community of sales professionals.
I appreciate your having me. Thanks so much. I'm excited. I've been looking forward to this one, so very excited.
Great. So start off with the first question here. What is your one game-changing tactic that you rely on to build strong client relationships?
So one tactic that's worked for me very, very well over the years has been what I think of it as kind of extended one-on-one time. People talk about, oh, get people out of the office, get them on the golf course, and all that's great and effective. For me, when I look back on the kind of the most successful large client and customer builds that I've done, it's been, we have taken trips together and not vacation trips, more like we go to see suppliers together. Or in one case, I was working back east, and I used to every year we did this. It was a charity golf tournament with one of our core suppliers, and four of us from myself and two or three people from my client would go, and we'd essentially spend the weekend together. And it was a couple rounds of golf, dinners, and we got to know each other so well that whenever anything came up that was difficult or that we needed to deal with, I felt like I had those really strong, beyond just client relationships to lean on. We knew about each other's kids, we knew about each other's problems. Really, really deep relationship building there. So.
That's fantastic. I think that's amazing. Whenever it is possible to do something like that, it goes beyond like what you said, like one round of golf or meeting for lunch. Like if you have the opportunity to, be, with an extended time with someone, it is. And it's not only it's more of the non-business talk, right? That gets to know that person, like with your travel time and your golf time and all the things where you're just getting to know them as people. And, it's not about business or selling or closing a deal.
Yeah, and in the case of that charity golf tournament, we actually drove from the Boston area down to New York, upstate New York for it. So we were in the car together for 4, 5, 6 hours, sometimes 8, depending on traffic down that way. And so even if it is just business, you run out of that pretty quickly. And so to be able to pivot to the more, again, I think of them as real meaningful conversation. You build really meaningful, deep relationships with that customer. Now, that's not something you're not going to do that with every client or every customer. But when you identify those very specific companies that you can grow with, you get to know them at multiple levels, personally and professionally. It can go a long way towards long-term growth.
Yeah. Especially if you're a likable person, right?
Well, that's yes,
You're
yeah. Book's still out on me for that, I guess. But yes,
No, I agree. It's funny. What's the best piece of sales advice that you've received, and how has that changed your approach?
yeah. This is a great question. Kind of got me thinking, and as I was preparing for this or trying to get ahead of this a little bit, I was like, what is it? And I think it goes back to some training that I had when I was very, very young, very new in the business. I was actually in the insurance business, and they brought in this trainer, and what he said was, if your competition is doing something, you need to stop doing it immediately. And that's something that sort of flowed with me both through the way that I engage, the way that I interact with people, the way that I try to present myself. Back then there was a lot of, everybody was features and benefits, features and benefits. I'm dating myself. I'll let the kids Google that to see when we moved away from that. But it really sort of pushed me towards more of a consultative role. Like, how can I be of value to this? Everybody else is talking about all the things that they do, and here's what this widget does, and here's what that widget does. And for me, it was more about trying to understand that client. And then I saw that too when I was in manufacturing. So many manufacturers were out there talking about our quality and our pricing and our delivery, and it's like everybody's talking about that. Everybody's doing the same thing. How do you get away from that so that you can differentiate yourself in what often can be a crowded commodity-based market?
Yeah, very, very interesting on that. And it's about learning that, what the differentiators are, right? Because yes, everybody is, and if they're selling the same thing, your product, it's probably similar to somebody else's. Maybe there's differences, but it's more than that. And figuring out, what figuring out your client and what problem they're looking to solve, and then, working towards that, and how you can help them with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, identifying that problem is so often the key to getting or not getting the business. And if you can keep digging and understand it and differentiate yourself. One of the companies I worked with, we made white canisters out of high density polyethylene plastic. About the most basic thing that you can make. Almost anybody's equipment could do it, so we spent a lot of time internally. How do we differentiate ourselves? And at the time, sustainability was growing in that business. We sort of doubled down on that and said, all right, everybody's talking about quality and price. What about some of the efforts that we're taking to be a more sustainable supplier? We're in the plastics market. Plastics still is in a lot of ways uncommon, even though it's one of the most useful materials on earth, or unpopular, sorry. So we really went in on that. How are we differentiating there, as opposed to just, hey, buy our canister for less money than what the other guy's selling his canister for.
Right. Yeah, definitely. That makes total sense to me. Um, let's talk about AI. How everybody's talking about AI. It's, kind of come in like a storm over the past year, a little bit more. How do you see it changing the game and the future of sales?
I think it's going to have a major effect, obviously, huge ramifications on sales. And the way that I look at and try to work with and help my clients work with AI is, how do I use that tool to automate processes, to make certain things that are really hard for salespeople? Most of us aren't wired to go build lists and to scour websites and to do some of those internal type tasks, right? We want to be out in front of clients and customers. How do you pivot that so that your salesperson, your outside salesperson, is getting more one-on-one conversations with more warm and qualified leads? So it's not to eliminate the sales rep in the process. It's to actually enhance that person, give that person the ability to spend more time in front of a customer. Someone once told me a long, long time ago, there's only one thing that someone else in your organization can't do as a salesperson, and that's sit down in front of a customer. I guess in the modern world is have a Zoom call in front of the customer as well. But so how do we get more of that and less of the things that are hard and time consuming and take you away from that? And so for me, that's where AI comes in to find leads, follow leads, utilize the tools to automate some of that follow up, make sure it's happening, and again, all in an effort to eliminate wasted time and put your representatives in front of more customers that are ready to buy.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer, and it's exactly right. You want to use it. Everybody has whatever their greatest value, right? So you're saying, like, sales rep, your greatest value is getting out in front of the customer and FaceTime. So all the things that you can automate, that you can do to, like, use AI to help, so that you can spend more time doing what only you can do. That's exactly it. So to, figure out where you can spend most of your valuable time doing the things that actually move the needle. So yeah, I mean, I think that's a great use of it. What's something that you think that people are using AI for right now that they shouldn't be using it for?
Ooh, I think blindly using it for things like content creation. And I say blindly because I use it, I try to be careful with it, but when you just ask your AI, even if it's a trained AI that you've spent time on understanding your business, which I have and I do for my clients, but it can do some funky things a little bit. You can use language that people can catch, especially those people that see how AI speaks and things like that. So be very, very careful with just blindly creating content. I remember once, not too long ago, I was experimenting with it, and I just had I was using Copilot, and I just said, create a post that's this, and this, and I put it out, and like 30 seconds later, a guy in my network, he didn't crack back at me, but he created another post, and it basically said, have you noticed how people are just taking AI and posting it and calling it their own? I was like, ooh, I said that hurts. I never validated that he was coming back at me on that, but it felt like too coincidental. So I've
Yeah.
ever since then I thought, okay, I understand. People are reading these things, and I need to be careful to make sure that it's my content and not my AI assistant's content.
Yeah, you had a guilty conscience there. You're like, oh, I feel like that.
Yeah, yeah. I think he's criticizing me.
Yeah, but it is for sure not only you. I mean, for like when you look at LinkedIn now, like there are so many posts every day where you see, like and you just know like this is this is AI. You're not really saying anything meaningful. You're just kind of regurgitating things, and it is important to really make sure that you maybe that helps you with your grammar or how to put it, say what you want to say. But just kind of having like the basic like create this post is very difficult.
Yeah,
To have your own
yeah.
thoughts, and come across as authentic because that's what you don't, right? You don't want to use it and then come across as inauthentic or like you're, just a bot or you're
Exactly.
just not
Yeah,
not
yeah.
even thinking of creating your own content. So yeah,
Yeah, I'll
absolutely.
I'll use it now. Again, I'm far more careful than I was at the beginning with this, but I'll use it now to say, give me like 3 or 4 ideas for a series of posts or something like that, and it'll just kind of give me maybe a heading or whatever, and then I'll take that and okay, that's a good idea, and it makes sense, and then you expand on that in your own language as opposed to in its language.
Exactly. Exactly. It's like the blank page syndrome, right? Where it's like, just help me get started
Right,
and then I can
right,
take it from there. Yeah.
right.
What's something that you think salespeople should stop doing if they want to be more successful?
I think, and again, this kind of goes back to my own early days. I, and I was guilty often, and every once in a while still am, of projecting my fear of what someone thinks or how they might react or whether or not they're irritated with me or my operations group, projecting that fear on those prospects and customers. And I talk about fear a lot because fear as a salesperson is something you're probably not supposed to talk about because we're all supposed to be invincible and I chose a career in sales. Of course, I'm putting my head on the line, every week. But still, there's a lot of sort of underlying, you're, and it can lead to paralysis. Like, oh, I don't want to reach back out to this customer because we just had a late delivery. Well, guess what? That's exactly the time to reach out to that customer, especially in modern times on the phone with a phone call, and even if you get a voicemail, something simple like, "Hey, I just touching base, want to make sure you understand, sorry about what happened." Whatever it is, doesn't matter. But to me, sort of taking that fear and just letting it fester, and letting it cause you to not do the job correctly or not do enough of the job correctly.
Yeah, fantastic. And absolutely. It is hard, right? Like everybody, there's always that like fear of rejection or, fear of, people or what are people thinking and all of those things as a salesperson. And it's hard. And it is just part of one of those things where, you've got to get out there and, kind of put yourself on the line and,
Yeah,
and if there is a
yeah,
mistake or something that happened, addressing it and
yeah.
putting it out there and, kind of just coming at it head first and seeing how you can make it better and what you could do in the future to not have that same issue happen or, kind of what you are doing.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. I mean, those one-on-one getting back to one-on-one conversations, they're so valuable, and somebody might yell, like they might be upset, they might be very upset, but they're only going to be more upset if you wait 2 more weeks or if it happens again and you haven't reached out in the meantime. So to me, it's sort of, you just in some ways bury it until you're mature enough or old enough or in the trade long enough to understand that it isn't you the salesperson, but your role is to take some of those hits for the organization and make sure you keep building that relationship even when you do fall.
for sure. For sure. What do you think, moving on to talking about some sales talent and hiring, hiring salespeople is tough, especially, finding those great, hunters and people that are bringing in, new business. Do you have any tips or strategies for, spotting and hiring, rock star sales talent?
So You're way more learned in this than I am, so you're the expert on this one. But for me, one of the things that organizations get kind of hung up on is for salespeople we're good ones are persuasive. They're going to sell their case. They're going to do it naturally, and a lot of times not in a salesy way. Well, guess what? They're going to do that in interviews too. So sometimes people get sort of wrapped up in the, oh God, I love the whatever, this thing or that thing. To me, the real trick is to make sure is to get deeper there and make sure that there's a company and an organizational alignment with the deeper values and philosophies, and and not just that sort of surface, like, oh, this guy will look great in front of customers, or this person will look great in front of customers, because you need that anyway. It almost, they need to be able to interact with with your customers. But if they don't align with organizational values, with the culture of the company, with with the rest of the organization, it's going to be very, very difficult fit no matter what. Even if they are bringing in sales, there's always going to be that internal, beyond the normal tension. Sometimes there's normal tension between sales and ops anyway. It just can be what it is, but it doesn't have to be adversarial. It actually should be. They should push each other to do better. So for me, that's one. And then, there's a lot of tools out there now that you can use, and I'm sure you use them in your business, but tools to help evaluate, their cultural fit, assessments. What kind of personality type is this? Is it the right personality that we've identified for our business? And so I would say, kind of back to our earlier discussion, use some of that technology as well to make sure you've got that fit.
Yeah. And for salespeople specifically, most, speaking in generalities here, most salespeople are present well. They are good at driving, at relationships. They're good at talking. So being able to, like you said, dig deeper than that is really important. And a lot of people in small businesses, when they're interviewing salespeople, they're like, oh, I like this guy. Well, that's awesome. You've got to like them. They
Right.
have to be likable, but digging to find all of the other things, right? What they've accomplished, how they've accomplished it, what goals have they met? What have resources have they had at one position versus another? And what resources do you have at your company? So,
Right.
all of these things are so important to dig in on. And,
That,
it goes more than
that's
just, I like you. Yeah.
that's a great point. And I in when I was the VP of sales for a large manufacturing company, we were a relatively big company, but there were certain monsters in the industry, and we're like, oh, let's go get a couple salespeople from there. And they really struggled because in their old company, they had all of these resources to support them on almost every front, from marketing to quality to the traffic and logistics. And in a smaller company, we didn't have all that. And so they wound up responsible for a whole lot more things. And for whatever reason, it didn't come up that would really make them struggle. And so after 6, 8, 9 months, they're like, I can't do this. This isn't what I've been trained to do. And so, in that case in particular, it was a big miss. But not to say that people that work for big companies can't work for small companies. It happens all the time. You just need to make sure that you have understood what motivates them and drives them, and can they adapt in an environment where suddenly there aren't those things.
Right. And just because you have the same title, you might be called account executive and account executive at two different companies. That does not mean that you are doing the same thing or that you have the same resources. And really digging into that is a part of the recruiting process and truly understanding.
Exactly. The other thing too, and it's not flashy, but it's important, is what is the foundation that you're bringing that salesperson into? What do you have to offer them other than opportunity? Hey, we got 40% capacity on our machines. Great. Well, what do you have? Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. It's gone. I don't know why. But the foundation. Sorry, that's where I was headed. Is there a process to bring this person in that you're investing a whole lot of money in? And with sales, maybe even more than many other, you're investing up front because it's going to take them time to get going. But what is the foundation that they've got to learn your organization? What's your onboarding process? What's your 6-month, 12-month onboarding process? Because they need that. They don't just magically understand your organization. They don't magically understand what your deliverables are just because they were in a similar or related business. So and if you don't have that, then you wind up with frustrated salespeople, frustrated leadership, and oftentimes someone pursuing the wrong business because they didn't quite understand what the nuance was of what you were doing. And, so make sure that they've got a process, that onboarding process as well.
We talk about that all the time with our clients. Like, you can have a great person, but if they are not onboarded properly, you're not setting them up for success. And it's more than just the first day, making sure that they have a laptop. It is, a true,
Right, right.
onboarding plan, first week, 30, 60, 90, 6 months, 12 months, all the things that you want to accomplish and the conversations that you want to have within those different time frames. So yeah, very
Right.
important stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Robert, tell us a little bit about your background, what you do, and where can people find you?
Sure. I love to say that I fix broken sales machines. I fix broken sales machines for companies in manufacturing, industrial distribution verticals primarily. I am based in beautiful Denver, Colorado. And people can find me. I try to be active on LinkedIn. Certainly, I'm uh, you know, as good as someone in a solo seat can be, I guess. With that, so reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm also an advisor for Sales Acceleration, which has been a great tool, great set of tools for me to use. Someone like me is getting started in their business. I spent about the first 25 or so years of my career in distribution for a small company that got acquired and wound up working for a really, really big company, now billions of dollars, and really learned a lot there about something about when your clients or customers can buy what you buy from almost anybody else, you really try to find your value, right? And that flipped into working directly for manufacturing companies. And so when I started my own business, I really wanted to focus back in that and help those companies find their their path to repeatable sales and repeatable revenue growth. So I've really enjoyed it. I'm glad I did it, and really just looking forward to growing my business and helping my clients grow their business.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being on Funnel Vision today. I appreciate all of your advice and great conversation, and look forward to keeping in touch.
That was great. Thank you so much, Lana. Have a great day.
You too.